again. So, Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to the live stream. There's me trying to use fancy technology, and that's completely backfired. So we're back to just the normal camera and the microphone on my laptop. So let's go. So if anybody wants to drop any questions into the comments, that'd be great. But I've also had quite a few questions that have been emailed in. So we can start to rattle through those. And so this one was from a guy who sounds like he's a relatively beginner cyclist. He's riding about 70k, rides fairly easily at the moment, fairly slow on the hills. Probably could do with losing a few kilos, which is probably like all of us after the Christmas break. Never taken on a sportif as hard as this before, very apprehensive. What's the best training? So I think the key thing here is that I'm not a coach. I can give some recommendations of coaches, both locally in the UK. But the first thing to do is not to panic, because it's still a long, long way off till the Etape du Tour. And being completely honest, I've only been back on the bike the last couple of days. And I'll be there in July. So it isn't panic stations yet. I think the key thing to do, though, if your budget kind of doesn't extend to employing a coach to get you to the Etape du Tour, then I would focus on extending your rides, specifically to the approximate time that you think that you are going to take to complete the event, and also the distance. But as you get, say, into March, I would certainly ensure that you build some hills into that. So you really need to be doing rides that include 3,000-4,000 meters of climbing to get you into peak condition for the tour, for the actual event. But just let me pop some recommendations in the chat of coaches. So these guys are local to us, and they've got a lot of people through both the Etape du Tour and the Marmot. And then there's another guy that I've spoken to before. All this was loaded on my other computer, but technology beat me on that one. But if you also have a chat with Rick at cyclecoach.com, he's also coached quite a few people through to the Etape and the Marmot, and quite a few professional riders as well. So okay, so from Lee, where does the ride start in Annemasse? I don't think anywhere that you stay in Annemasse is going to be too far from the start. Annemasse is a fairly big-ish town, but there's no confirmed details of exactly where it starts yet. None of the information that I've seen has anything specific, but taking into account that there's 16,000 people, I would imagine it's going to be on the outskirts of Annemasse rather than the town centre. But as soon as we know that, we'll certainly take a look at that, and we'll also do a video on any technical sections. I don't think it's going to be that technical leaving Annemasse. It's quite a gentle rollout from Annemasse until you get onto the cul-de-sac cell. So I wouldn't worry too much about the start. So how do I remove that one now? Hide. There we go. This is all new technology to me, so bear with me. So Pierre emailed me. He did the Etape last year. Pierre and probably 2 or 3 other people emailed me to compare last year's Etape to this year's Etape. So in general terms, how do you think the Etape 2023 compares to the Etape 2022 in terms of difficulty? Unfortunately, he came to a grinding halt in the 2022 Etape. And what does the 2023 Etape look like compared to that? So I think when you reflect back on the 2022 Etape, there was 16,000 people entered that Etape. The temperature at the start line was something like 30 degrees. There was only 12,500 people actually turned up to the start. And I think from memory, there's only about 9,000 finished. So it was absolutely brutal. So anybody that got as far as Alpe d'Huez, as far as I'm concerned, did really well last year. And to finish it would have been excellent. So looking at the 2023 Etape, I think, in my opinion, that it is going to be slightly easier than last year. Now, this is based on 3 points. So the first point is that the logistics of the event are so much easier this year than they were last year. To get from Alpe d'Huez to the start in Briançon, there were stories of people setting out at 2 o'clock in the morning. When you think how that plays with your head and your sleep patterns and your eating patterns, that's certainly not a great way to start probably the toughest event of your life. So this year, the logistics of starting in Annemasse, there's lots of hotels in Annemasse. It's actually possible to ride back from Morzine to Annemasse. It's probably over 2 very short climbs. And I, for one, will be riding home to Domancy from Morzine at the end of the event. So the whole logistics thing takes a big headache out of your preparation for the event. The second thing is that the 2022 Etape certainly went to high altitude. So the Glibier is 2,600 odd. The Croix de Fer is 2,064, and then obviously the finish at 1,850. So if you're coming from the UK or from Holland or one of the flatter, lower countries, the thing is that it's very difficult for you to adjust to riding at any degree of stress up to altitude. Looking at the 2023 Etape, the 2 key summits of the Ramaz and the Joux Plane are only at 1,850 meters. So I think you can rule out pretty much any effect of altitude on the body. So again, that's going to make the event a lot easier. The third thing is probably to balance that out is that the 2023 Etape, I would describe it as being a lot more dynamic. So if we look at the profile, there's actually more climbs on this route than is actually highlighted on the event. So we've got the Col de Saxel, the Col de Cou. Straight after the Col de Cou, there's another 1.5 kilometer climb up to the Col de Moise. And when you get over the Joux Plane, there's another short climb up to the Col de Ramphely. So the ascending and descending, I think, in effect, it's a lot more technical Etape than it was last year. Last year was basically 3 slogs up 3 massive climbs with 3 fairly non-technical descents, whereas particularly the descent off the Col de Feu is pretty technical. You may have seen the video of the Col de Cou descent, and that has a couple of technical sections. Off the Ramaz isn't too technical, but also the final descent into Morzine, that should be a ski run at the moment, but we've had that much rain at the moment in the Alps. You've probably seen in the news that there's not a lot of snow out here. But the Joux Plane descent is fairly technical down into Morzine. So whilst the 2023 Etape is a lot more dynamic than the 2022 Etape, I'm going to put my neck on the block and say that it is fractionally easier than 2022. And you can tell me what you think after the event. So Tom lives in Morzine. Okay, so you're only just around the corner from us. We're around in Domancy. So in terms of training for you, Tom, a regular ride for me is when we used to live up in the Chamonix Valley, I would drive to Tanange and I would go up the Ramaz from Uzi, back around to Tenange, and then over the Joux Plane back down to Morzine, and back again round through Leger back to Tenange to the car. Now, where we live now in Demansy, it's achievable for me to do that straight from the door. When I was training for the Marmot a couple of years back, I think the biggest ride I did, just quickly, because some people in this chat probably won't have heard of these cols, but I did a ride from Demansy over the Côte des Arèches to Le Carreau, down to San Juan, over the Joux Plane, up the Joux Vert, back down to Morzine, over the Encrenat, over the backside of the Ramaz, and then back round to Demansy. So that gave me about 160, 170 Ks and 4,400 meters of climbing. So that was a pretty good day out. If you've got your bike with you now, Tom, which I'm guessing if you live in Morzine all year round and you're not just here for the season, the way the snow is at the moment, I would suggest that you head down to the Chablais climbs. So the Chablais, there is no snow as far as I can see in the Chablais at the moment, and all the cols, the Saxel, the Col de Cou, the Col de Feu, they pretty much stay open all year round. So I would head down there and get some loops in around there. Flat rides, if you were to drive over to Tenange, and you can do the loop, San Juan, over the Châtelard down to Cluse, maybe up to Lafayette, and then back round. I think that's probably about 100 Ks. I kind of do a version of that in the winter from Demansy, so that's another option for you. So going over to Lee, also the carnage on CDF was terrible due to the heat. Okay, I think we've covered that. I think CDF, I'm going to think Lee there means ADH. Are those keys close together? A, D, and H, C, D, and F. I guess so. Croix de Fer. Okay, yeah. Carnage on the Croix de Fer. Yeah, I think that the ASO made a mistake last year. I think that route was too challenging, coupled with the logistics. But nothing's going to change that now. But anybody that finished last year did super well. So let's have, what gearing do you recommend? This is from David, currently riding a compact setup of 50-34, 11-28. Now, I think whatever gearing you have, you'll be wishing by the time you got to the Joux Plane that you had another gear, another lower gear. I started off using the same gearing when I moved out to the Alps. I was completely unfit at the time. I think I went up the Columbia as my first alpine climb back in 2007 and had an absolute nightmare. I think as I've got older, my gears have got kind of the cassette at the rear has got bigger. I've now moved to 52, 36, 11, 34. I'm still on 11 speed at the moment. I've not transitioned to 12 speed. But I think at best, I'm kind of pushing 4 watts a kilo. I'm usually around about 75 kilos. So I'm not a natural born climber, but I managed to get up the Joux Plane on a good day in under an hour, maybe about 53 minutes. Certainly not at the moment, probably take about an hour and 20 minutes. But I would say that unless you're a super skinny climber, I would consider changing out your rear cassette. I think you can get to a 32 or a 34. I wouldn't worry too much about the 50, 11 or 12. I think, is it 12, 34? I think you can get. I wouldn't worry too much about a big gear. I mean, I've only now gone to 52, 11 because I'm quite a confident descender and I can pedal down the hills. But to be honest, quite a lot of the time it's either too technical or too scary to pedal down the hills. Okay, just coming back to Tom there. I think you can go mountain biking at Leger tomorrow by the looks of things. I think they've added the mountain bike attachments to the ski lifts that things are that bad at the moment. Talking of which, this is from a guy at Lake Tahoe in the States. So I hope Steve, you've got better snow conditions than we have in the Alps at the minute. It's been quite a challenging start to the ski season. So on the day, I know it's a long way off, but how long before the start do you arrive? So normally, I would aim to be at the start around about an hour before your pen starts. So you can imagine that there's 16,000 riders, there's probably 16 pens, maybe even 20 pens. So I wouldn't get there too early. But the reason I get there an hour before is that I've kind of got this thing in my head that I always want to try and be near the front of the pen. And the other thing is that they are quite organised at the Etape, that you can send a small bag onto the finish. So even if particularly if you're riding home from the event, I would definitely send a bag to the finish and put your favourite recovery products in there, some change of clothes. If I'm going to ride home, I'll probably put a spare pair of shorts in there, a spare pair of cycling kit. And that's just something that you can go straight to at the finish, especially if there's a mega long queue for food at the finish. So you've got something that you can immediately eat. So I'm going to guess, if you get there an hour before the finish. The problem is that if you're transferring from, say, Morzine or Samoan, you're probably going to need to set off at the Cracker Sparrows to get there. And the chances are that if you're with a tour operator and not staying in Annemasse, that you may end up there early. But ballpark figure, I'd end up riding, getting to the start maybe an hour before your start time. Okay, Anonymous, a British question. What about the weather? 2022, it was 35 degrees on Alpe d'Huez. So the weather, the weather is a hot topic in the Alps at the moment. We're having a complete nightmare start to the ski season. I was in Geneva on Sunday. It was 19 degrees. We had the air conditioning on the 1st of January, air conditioning in the van. People were in T-shirts. The kids next door were out playing football in T-shirts. So, the weather is pretty screwed up at the moment. Looking at last summer, we live at about 600 meters above sea level. We're just below Chamonix, which is at 1,000 meters. Morzine, Tom will tell me how high Morzine is. It's about 1,200, I think. I was over there on Sunday as well, and it's very green in the Alps at the moment. There's a lot of ski areas that can't operate. So looking back at last summer, as I say, we're at 600 meters altitude. We had about 6 weeks where the weather was over 30 degrees. It was just day after day. Occasionally we'd have a thunderstorm that do occur quite often, but we didn't have that many last summer. So it was just this continual heat for 6 weeks. Contrast that. Okay, so Morzine's at 1,000 meters as well. Thanks, Tom. Contrast that with the 2021 Tour de France, where the race was in the Alps for 2 days, and it did nothing but rain for 2 days. We had the stage from Annemasse to Tignes. It was absolutely hoofing it down. That came past us in Demansy, so we literally went out with the brolly, watched the race go past, and came straight home and watched it on the TV. Same with the Col de Rome stage. When Podjagar was attacking on the Col de Rome, again, it was hoofing it down. So the thing is, keep prepared for every eventuality. Now, the best weather forecast in the region, to keep an eye on the general weather situation, is a weather forecast that comes out of Chamonix, which is this one. And you can kind of get a feel for the weather forecast 5 days ahead with that website. But I think you do need to prepare for every eventuality. 35 degrees is not fun to ride in. And the thing is with the Etape, that I've been lucky in the recent etappes that I've done that I've started either in the second or third pen. So we're going to finish early in those pens. The slower riders are starting in the 10th, 11th, 12th pen. So last time the etappe finished in Morzine was in 2016. And I arrived on the Joux Plane quite early that day. I think it was 11 o'clock. And it was already carnage at that time. There's some people that had overcooked it in the front groups had got there and they were walking up the climb. And we'd organised a trip that year for the logistics. And I do remember out of the 10 people that we were kind of accommodating, looking after when we used to own the chalet up in Chamonix, there was at least 2 of them that ended up walking up the Joux Plane barefoot. So I said this for the etappe 2022, and I'll say it again for the etappe 2023. If you're in any doubt as to whether you're going to be cycling up the Joux Plane, if you have to resort to walking, I would strongly suggest that you strap a pair of flip-flops or Crocs or something underneath your saddle. You'll thank me on the day if you feel that you're going to be walking up the Joux Plane. So the final question that I've got, well, we just covered this one actually, Derek. So how tough is the Joux Plane? I think if you ride the Joux Plane in isolation, I think it's a difficult climb. But the thing with the Joux Plane is that if you ride it having ridden already 3,500 meters of climbing, another 100 odd kilometers, it's a very tough climb. Now, just remember that this is the climb that broke Armstrong, and he was on the gear at the time. So, if it breaks Armstrong, it could certainly break us mere mortals. It was also the scene of Landis's miracle ride, where I think he was 10 minutes ahead of the field. And we all know what happened with that story. So the Joux Plane, after the Ramaz and after the Chablais climbs, it's going to be a tough cookie. I've done a couple of videos on that specific climb, which you can see on the channel. There's actually an etappe playlist, which I'll put a note to in the comments below when I save this video up to YouTube. And that's about it for the Joux Plane. So that's all I've got in terms of questions. I don't know if anybody's got any more questions to add in the chat stream. I think there's a little bit of a delay from when I actually see the chat. So I think we'll call it a night there. I hope this has been useful. I'm quite happy to do these again. Hopefully we'll get some more questions. You can email any questions to me, mike@breathebike.com. Or you can add them into the chat or the comments of the video. Please give us a thumbs up. Did I remember to water the plants? So Jude, as some of you may have guessed, is my wife. She's actually in the UK at the moment. So yes, I have remembered to water the plants. Everything's surviving. So as I say, quite happy to do these chats again. If there's an appetite to do them once a month in the lead up to the etappe, I'm quite happy with that. Doesn't look as though I'll be skiing a lot in the next few months. And work commitments are reducing because I am reliant on tourists for the ski season as part of my main work. So I have got time on my hands. So if you drop in the comments if there's an appetite for that. But thanks for joining us this evening. And do check out the other etappe stuff that we've put together on the channel. And we'll see you next time on Cycling in the French Alps. Thanks for watching. Good night.